August 27, 2019, regular meeting of the Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city's planning department, the city attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates. If you wish to address the planning commission, please come forward when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-on sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission and not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, Blackberries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting, please be either placed in silent mode or be turned off. Ms. Sarnicki, the roll, please.
Mr. Avidian?
Here.
Ms. Cruz? Here. Mr. Faison?
Here.
Ms. Fowler?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krent?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here.
Mr. Rahman?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here.
Mr. Tattapalli?
Here.
Quorum present, thank you. Item number 2 on tonight's agenda is approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. I need a motion to approve. Mr. Lambert. In support? Mr. Rahman. Ms. Sarnicki?
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler? Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Avidian?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the August 13th, 2019 meeting. So if there are no questions or comments on the minutes, get a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to move.
Thank you, Mr. Krant, and support from Mr. Apahidian.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Avidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 4 is public comment for items that are not on the agenda. So is there anyone from the public that wants to comment on an item that is not on tonight's Planning Commission agenda? Thank you. Seeing none, I'll move to item number 5, special use approval. Special use and preliminary site plan review, file number SU 2019-0014. Proposed Panera Restaurant with drive-through north side of 14 Mile, west of John R., 390 West 14 Mile, Section 35, Zone GB. Mr. Carlisle.
Good evening. Panera Bread is back for the Planning Commission tonight. It was last considered in June. They're proposing a outlot on a 0.93 acre parcel within the Oakland Mall development. They're proposing a 1-story drive-through with a 4,300 square foot building. A drive-through is permitted with a special land use in the GB zoning district. The Planning Commission did consider this back in June. There are 8 comments that the Planning Commission had put as conditions for the postponement. They've addressed 5 of those 8 conditions, and there are 3 outstanding that there should be some discussion from the Planning Commission. The 5 that they did address is they did remove the bumper blocks and replace with bollards as recommended. They have provided directional signage details. They have provided trash enclosure screening details that indicates that the proposed screener will match the building materials. They have added self-closing hinges, and they have provided light fixture details. The 3 items that they did not address, or there should be some Planning Commission discussion, are the following. The first, there was a lengthy discussion on the location of the proposed sidewalk that they have located along their western property line. It runs parallel to the drive-through and parallel to the parking lot for the adjacent property. They note that this is for their employees to exit the building and safely access the trash enclosure. We find this to be rather unnecessary and just add additional impervious surface really that's not necessary. So what we're recommending rather is just use the sidewalk that's existing and use the pedestrian spine they have and do a crossing here to safely enter the trash enclosure. So again, we are recommending they actually eliminate that drive, put some additional landscaping in that location, and use the sidewalk that's in the existing, in the middle of their existing development. Secondly, as a requirement of the zoning ordinance, they are to indicate that lights will be turned off or reduced in intensity between 11 p.m. and sunrise. We did not see that note provided on their photometric plan, so again, that should be a note that would be added on their photometric plan as part of the engineering review. And lastly, there was a lengthy discussion on the use of materials as well as the design of the building, specifically with the use of EFIS that was such a prominent use on the design. The applicant did significantly revise their elevations, including adding more masonry materials, adding windows, and significant detail to the 14-mile elevation. They still are proposing the use of EFIS, however, it's on the second story above the door line. And lastly, we're asking the Planning Commission to confirm if the use of EFIS constitutes an accent material or there should be another material used as an alternative. So I'm going to briefly show the elevations. This is a parking lot elevation. The use of EFIS is in this approximate location. The rest is a masonry material. This is the elevation that's facing the interior drive, so the drive into the Oakland Mall development. This is the elevation facing that. This is the 14-mile elevation. I don't believe there's any EFIS on this elevation. Maybe a little bit in this corner here. And then this is the drive-through elevation. Again, this will be an EFIS material. The rest will be the masonry material. These are 4 3D perspectives, models of the building. As noted, this is a special use. There are standards that the Planning Commission should apply when reviewing the application. Overall, we do find that the special use standards have been met, provided that the applicant do address the site plan comments that are noted. And lastly, that we are recommending the Planning Commission grant the special use approval and the preliminary site plan approval with the waiver to eliminate the loading space and permit alternative location of greenbelt trees on the condition that the applicant eliminate the sidewalk as we discussed, indicate the lights will be turned off or reduce in intensity, as well as any additional Planning Commission comments with regards to the elevations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Any questions from the Planning Commission, Mr. Carlisle? Mr. Lambert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The sidewalk that you're recommending not be included, would the applicant then have to put a green space or some kind of planting in that area, or would it still be the asphalt that's down there currently?
Well, so I just know it's rare for a planner to want to get rid of a sidewalk. So I feel like I'm turning my planner card by saying this, but it's 5 feet wide. It could be landscaped, and it could accommodate a pretty significant amount of landscaping in that location. So it would just be converted to landscaped area as well. You know, from the curb line to the property line.
Thank you.
So just to follow up on that, a similar question. So would it be required to be landscaped, or do they?
If the Planning Commission recommends they remove the sidewalk, we would add that they should landscape that area as a requirement.
Because I'm assuming the site currently meets all the
Meets all
existing
landscaping, yes.
landscaping requirements.
Yes.
So that'd be an additional.
Yeah, I mean, it could be grass. I mean, it doesn't have to be landscaping, but it should be something impervious, not just a sidewalk.
Right. Something permeable.
Permeable, sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Got it. Thanks. Mr. Tagle.
Is the adjacent property to the west, is that landscaping between the property line and the parking, do you know?
I don't believe so, but we can double check that.
It is presently not landscaping.
Is it accurate that there's, I don't know, a dimension from where the parking ends to the property line? Or are the cars parked right up against the park?
You can barely see, but there's grass in this location, and there's some shrubs located in this location.
But further north, the parking?
Further north,
constraint
it's a strip of, there's a strip of grass. It looks like it's about 5 feet wide.
So if that was to be landscaped on the east side of the property line, it
It's
would
about
look
10, there's about 10
continuous,
feet
yeah.
of, 10, it would be about 10 feet of grassed area.
Yeah, okay.
The red covers it up on this.
Mrs. Tannenbaum.
For the outdoor seating that Panera's providing, are they having rails towards that, or is it just open seating?
Well, they're required to have, if it's outdoor seating, they are required to have some physical barrier, so it would be some fenced-in area.
Okay.
Mr. Rapidi?
Just a question, clarification for what's being proposed or what you're proposing, Mr. Carlisle, for the applicant to actually have the employees walk on the proposed walkway down the middle of the spine. There is a sign there that's being proposed. Would that have to be relocated?
Go back.
I mean, so I'm on page 30.
Go back to the PowerPoint.
So that
Go back
sign-
to whatever page.
That's probably,
Well,
oh, yeah.
while I go back, I just wanted, that you show a fence that delineates the outdoor seating area. There you go.
You have a sign here?
So right there, that sign, so if that becomes actual path of the employees to cross, that location also needs a ramp, right? Like an actual ADA ramp or whatever's being cut there.
Well, there's a ramp here.
Right, okay,
I
so.
mean, you could extend this ramp,
So
pull it
that-
over, put a ramp here, and put the sign here. I think that's
So-
something we work out with engineering when we
Would
get to
that
that
force the
point.
employees to actually walk into the lane into that lane right there?
Well, the alternative is they have to walk, cross the drive-through here.
Right.
So it's a,
So I guess that's my question. Are we forcing the employees to walk into that lane? That probably sees more traffic than that drive-through. I mean, if we would, right now, without even any data, but just from intuition and common traffic patterns, are we doing that? Or are we actually, should we direct them toward the trash enclosure to the west, where that sign is?
utilizing the sidewalk?
No, that location. So the ramp actually directs them into they have to take that ramp and then make a left to go to the trash, to the dumpster?
I think,
Is that-
yeah, I think,
is that what
I think,
we're-
Mr. Rapini, what we would do is if that's the recommendation of the planning commission is to get rid of this, I think they would have to work through engineering to figure out how that exact, where this
So that's
outlet
not
would
the
be.
That's not the final layout right there.
No.
But that is across where cars go in and out.
Here?
Right.
Yes.
So they would have to go across traffic in order to get to the dumpster if they go that way.
Yes, and the alternative would be they'd have to cross they would have to cross the drive-through outlet lane right where the
That way,
end of the
okay.
window is, so.
So my question.
Neither ideal by any means. We're just trying to find ways to eliminate
I guess,
impervious surface.
looking at human behavior, you've picked up your order. You're feeding the dog with a whipped cream out of a paper cup with one hand. You're eating a muffin with the other hand. You're putting change in your pocket with your third hand, and you're starting to accelerate to get out of there, to get on 14 Mile. Your headspace maybe isn't where it needs to be. Versus when you're coming into the site, you're actively searching for a place to park, and you're in the mindset of slowing down, making that turn, and seeking a parking space. So, if it were me, I think if I'm going to cross at one of those two places, I'd rather cross at the top than in front of the lane where the person's just picked up their order.
So my question was more about the employees being directed to cross into not the drive aisle to the trash enclosure, but actually north of that ramp. So they're actually being directed into that drive aisle where, is that what's being shown there? Am I?
Yes, but I think this would have to be considered by engineering when they actually do the engineering review. That's the recommendation of the planning commission.
That's definitely an engineering detail.
Mr. Brent?
Just a quick observation. Yeah, they could have a ramp, because sometimes they'll be wheeling some kind of a trash container to the dumpster. And that one little island at the very top to the left could be a ramp too. That could be a ramp area, whereas, you know, you just wheel that thing down and go right, you don't have to go into the lane, that
Something
lane
right
of
here,
traffic.
something right here.
Correct. Well, no, not in the car, not in the lane, but not in
Here.
the parking spot, but right there in that island, right.
Yeah, again, that would be something that
Yeah,
engineer
I
would look at
understand.
if that's a condition. of
But I'm
the
just saying, to avoid employees
Mhm.
getting into that traffic lane, that would be,
Yep.
that's all I got.
Mr. Chairman, I see the ramps. Can you just identify the ramps right there?
There's a ramp this location, and there's a ramp in this location.
And then those hatchet lines are the mark on the,
These are crossings on the, marking on the pavement, and this is the handicapped
so
markings.
do you need any marking on the other side where it's gonna go across the traffic?
Here?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I think it's sufficient. I mean, it's a few employees will probably use the trash enclosure on a daily basis, so I think that should be sufficient as long as they have the right ramps and sidewalk as indicated by Mr. Apahidian.
Is there any requirement, like, do we need, the way you are showing, is there any requirement that we can avoid that as well, right? I'm just checking. What is the requirement for having those crossing, zebra crossing?
I don't know of a requirement at this location. You talking about
No,
the one here?
the one that you were showing, there are, yes,
It's a best practice. It's something we
it's a
encourage.
best practice,
Yes.
okay, got it. So you don't think that's necessary there because of the number of traffic probably at that time?
I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, we
I'm
should
wondering if the
ask,
striping is that because that's kind of like a primary ingress point?
Here?
Yeah.
Because this is the primary pedestrian access point for all to serve this parking, and so this is just a cross, you know, an indication to the drivers that this is a primary pedestrian
Right.
crossing spot. Yes.
So I'm asking because that seems different than.
Yeah, that's why we don't,
Trash
we would not do one here.
right.
We do not want to encourage people necessarily to cross this location.
Understand. Thank you.
Is there any time, like when those trash should be disposed, or any time in the day?
Applicants here, they can
Yeah,
take
that's
answer the
the
question.
question I had.
wait till they come up.
And I had that question as well.
Aside from the trash dumpster, it's a sidewalk to nowhere, really.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't spill you out any place except behind a dumpster.
Right.
So it's, serves one purpose, where they can accommodate that purpose on the other sidewalk.
Anything else for staff? Okay, thank you. So with that, I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and present their project.
Come up there.
Meet over here. I think either works, right? Or should we prefer him in
If you
advance?
speak loudly, these microphones will pick you up.
Okay, see you.
Good evening, council. I'm Scott Marsh, Senior Construction Manager with Panera Bread. Do you need my address?
Ms. Arnicky?
No, that's fine, thank you.
So I'm going to take a number of your points here and then show you our logic behind it and help you understand why we ended up with this proposal. The reason we have this designated sidewalk is obviously for the dumpster corral. Our staff, they take out the trash using carts, and the timing of that just varies. It depends on how busy we are. If we're very busy in a rush, and we know when those times will be, we empty it before that happens. We get through the rush, and then we take it out when we have slow times. So there's no set time or number of times a day. It's just as needed and when we have time. The reason we wanted to cross out the back here is to avoid having to take the cart around the building, through the traffic, through the drive-through traffic, or along the building where customers are outside utilizing the patio. It's just not real appetizing to sit down and have a large trash cart go by you. And we certainly don't want them going against the traffic in that drive-through lane, weaving through the cars. So the logic was to have that sidewalk put in to access that dumpster. In a normal site, we wouldn't have the dumpster so far away, but this site, this is what yields possible, so that's why we have it up there. The width is currently 5 feet on that, and I understand the need for green space, and at Panera, we certainly want that as much as we can as well. That's something our customers like, we like as a brand, and we want to have it as natural as we can be. And we can actually reduce that. Our carts fit through a 3-foot door, so we could reduce that down to a 4-foot sidewalk. If additional green space is needed, I would propose a compromise of eliminating this sidewalk in the middle of this island to accommodate more green space. The reality of how much it'll get used is debatable. Anybody parking along the side over here, they're not gonna walk over there, cross the grass and get on the sidewalk, come in. And even the people that are parked here, they may not wanna walk across the grass to get on that sidewalk. So I would propose that we would maybe eliminate that as a compromise. The ADA access we have to the sidewalk down here, so as far as ADA compliance goes, I don't think this is necessary to meet code. And this is a huge parking lot up here that we won't get a lot of traction from, I don't think, because we do have plenty of parks for our model. The possibility of using this for the dumpster, it concerns me, crossing this, because we view this as a much more dangerous intersection than crossing the cars that have just gotten their food. We have, slow traffic through here, no one's gonna be flying through there. We've got a crosswalk striped, and crossing across here, we have cars turning left, they're looking for the next car coming at them. They may not be looking for the customer or a person walking across that opening, and that could potentially cause a hazard. So those are the reasons we have written it like this, and would like your consideration on that. As far as the EFIS goes, not sure if that's an allowed material. In other markets, we have used a different material, which is looks the same, but it's a different process. We use a Durock 5/8 inch cement board adhered to the building. All seams are taped, and then it gets the final coats, the scratch coat, or base coat, scratch coat, and then top coat, as you would typically have on an EFIS. So it looks identical, but it's a different material. It doesn't have the insulating features of EFIS. We would use bad insulation in lieu of that. Is there any other questions I could answer for any of you? Oh, the lighting. All of our lights are controlled. We have them on timers, and we can adjust those timers. One question I might have is that we do all of our baking at night. Every day, fresh dough comes in, usually at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's when our baker arrives and they start cooking. I can look into maybe reducing the wattage that gets put out on the LED lights, or maybe an alternate would be to have only 1 or 2 lights on, just to provide some light for the delivery truck and that baker that's coming in at night. Did you have a question?
I have one.
Sure.
You talked about the trash, and it's coming, the people will come out with the trash on the 14-mile roadside?
Yes, there's a back door right here.
Right,
Yep.
right. And so they would not come out the south end? That's contiguous to the
Up here.
Shrine parking lot, yeah.
Correct, because this is all, the front of this is all lobby.
Okay.
So our kitchen and operations is all the back.
Okay, so you're
the
not gonna
drive-through-
wheel the trash through the lot?
We'd either have to go through the lobby, or we'd have to go around the building, through the parking lot, around the
Yeah,
patio
we're
area.
going to get that point. Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Taker, you have a question?
Is that drive lane curbed?
Is it curved?
Curbed, yes.
I believe it should be, yes. Yes.
Okay, so you're going to have ramps
There will
on
be
each
a
side?
ramp. Yep, on each side of that.
How do you, at what point do you get into the dumpster enclosure with the trash bin?
My engineer is here. Does it have a door on the side?
There's
An
a door
opening?
on this side.
Okay, so there is an opening on this side, so they don't have to walk out in front. And the gates are going to be self-closing.
If that walk stays, would it make more sense to put the door in the backside so that they stay out of the drive lanes or stack-up lane totally?
Would we have enough width to get by the 2 cans in there?
We'd have to look, it's the architect's detail, I think it works a lot better from the side, but we could look at it.
I'm sure we could engineer a way.
I mean, what's in the, I mean, you're taking a cart out there, is there trash bags in there? So he takes or she takes the trash bags out, puts them in the dumpster enclosure? So the cart really doesn't have to go inside the enclosure. If someone carrying the bag has to get through whatever man door or opening to throw the bags in, right?
That's potential, yes. I personally haven't seen how exactly they do it, but I'm assuming it's in that manner.
Could you speak to us, I looked at your elevations, I'm not familiar with the masonry product, it's an Echelon in Duramax.
Okay.
Is that a clay product? I mean, it notes it as a running bond, that could be a brick, it could be
It's a cement brick.
It's a cement, what's the size of it?
It is,
Face
I
dimension.
believe, a 2-inch thick, deep, and then a 2-inch tall. It looks like a standard brick, a little longer. The length might be 16 inches. But it's mounted on top of foam. It's adhered to the wall, and the foam has, the anchors that hook the foam to the wall have cleats in them that hold the brick in place.
Okay. And I noticed the patterns, you show some different sizes, like almost a row of narrow and a row of larger. Is that what you're going to be building?
That's what the architect drew, yes, but there's room for it, you know.
Well, I guess if you're submitting these drawings for our approval, and that's what they're showing, I would expect
Right.
that to be what we see at the end of the day. The only other comment, tell your architect to orient his floor plans correctly. His floor plan is oriented 180 degrees to what it should be.
Okay.
He's showing the north arrow correctly, but the floor plan is 180 degrees wrong.
Okay.
Because he's showing the drive up on the east side, and actually it's on the west side.
Okay. I'll let him know.
Anything else for the applicant? No.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Any additional comments? Mr. Sauer.
I appreciated the explanation about the sidewalk to the west. It makes a lot of sense. Still not in full agreement with it, but I understand where they're coming from. What I would suggest is if the planning commission feels it's appropriate to keep the sidewalk, the applicant suggested eliminating the sidewalk, and I don't believe we should do that.
You do not.
Do not believe we should do that. I think that people will use this, and it's our responsibility as a planning commission to provide a pedestrian connection to that building. So I would say that that's not on the table. It's one thing to have both, but to have only this one, I vehemently oppose that.
Okay. And your point is that's one of our requirements.
First of all, it's required, and second of all, it's, people will use that sidewalk. I would suggest, he did raise a good point about this edge here with if there's landscaping here, perhaps this entire sidewalk could be impervious, so that you're not stepping over grass, but that sidewalk is necessary.
Okay, thanks for the comment. And to your point, I thought the explanation of the sidewalk on the west side was illuminating for me also.
It was very helpful. It wasn't, I wasn't at the previous meeting, but because I had a conflict, but I don't believe this information was shared. I think it would have been helpful at that time if we'd known this information.
Mr. Rapahidian.
So just to follow up on your comment there, Brent, on the sidewalk on the west side there. So in my mind, what I'm looking at really is choosing between employee safety and maximizing green space or minimizing impervious space. And if I would really choose between those two, what's more important, I think employee safety would be more important. So the applicant knows what their need is in terms of how they want to get to the trash enclosure, how their employees function in terms of frequency of trips they make and the amount of trash they take out, and just in terms of traffic. I think that's a much safer location to cross, because if there are vehicles there, they're probably stopped at that drive-through window. So the speed of a vehicle there is probably 0 to 5 miles an hour, so a lot slower than trying to control a vehicle that's making a right turn there, could be coming in the parking lot, maybe even at 10 miles an hour. I mean, there's no way to control the speed of the vehicle. So in terms of which one is safer, I think it's a safer location to cross, and employee safety should be the priority versus trying to keep another probably a few hundred square feet of green space. That's just my thought on that.
Mr. Hudson.
Two thoughts. I like the construction manager's explanation of the sidewalk on the west side. But I'm thinking maybe it's a compromise. You keep speaking of impervious surface. Why can't we have a pervious surface on that yellow strip for the sidewalk? You're going to achieve some drainage there, and it won't be floating off on a hard surface. Secondly is the lighting. This is in a huge shopping center at the corner of an industrial intersection, And thinking about the bakers, I'm not really too concerned about the dimming of the lights at night on this project. So, keep the lights on, or at least sufficient for the bakers to safely ingress and egress that location.
Thank you. Anything else?
Just one quick thought.
Yeah, Mr.
Just to piggyback on what John Takel was saying about the entrance for employees to get into the trash enclosure from the backside. That would be my preference too. The thing is, I don't know what dumpster configurations are available and how that all works, but some dumpsters have sliding side doors on the actual dumpster itself, so that employees can just slide that door open on the side and dump stuff in, as opposed to lifting the lid off the top. And I would like to see that solution where you can come in from the backside, some kind of access door from the enclosure, and then just slide a back panel on that dumpster, if it's available. I'm not trying to have custom-made dumpsters, but it would be, I like his logic of not having them come in, because even though they're slowing down to turn into that, not all, that's really tight. Somebody may be coming in and not seeing that employee. Sometimes employees look, not bright, they're not wearing a vest that reflects and all those things at night. And I'm just a little bit leery of that employee going on the side of that dumpster walking. Anyway, that's my thought. It would be great if they could work something out on the backside. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks, John.
There's a lot going on up there, especially in the morning, in the wintertime when it's dark. And it's busy and you're in a hurry to get to work, but you need your coffee, and you're just making that turn and you're swinging into that stacking lane.
That's the only thing that kind of bothers me. I'm not opposed to the EFS amount that they've proposed. It's a little more than I'd like to see, but it's not outrageous. And the lighting, I kind of agree with Mr. Hudson. That's a giant shopping mall with lots of big lights, and they light them up pretty much all night long. They don't go out. So I'm sure they regulate something on it. But I've seen them lit well into the night. So anyway.
Well, now's our chance to reduce light pollution.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. No,
And
you're right.
It is a requirement to dim the lights. So.
Okay, that's fine with me then. That's fine.
So meaning that other lights in that parking lot that are being dimmed in with the same requirements that we're
Well, the other lights in the parking lot are pre-existing, so we're not requiring them to comply for those other lights in the parking lot. But we're considering this application.
Okay, so any new.
New.
Okay, I can see that.
Understood. Okay.
It's a back term, I guess.
Yes, Mr. Robin. I
Go
recognize you though, go ahead.
What happens if we move the dumpster at a different location, like on the east side in the middle, so that we don't have to walk all the way to the other side? Isn't it better for the
Where would you put it?
east side in the middle? I don't remember the.
We spent a long time talking about this at the first meeting, and so this was kind of the best location.
Just to briefly, you can mention that, because we couldn't come to a resolution yet, so that's why I'm thinking that, just to remind myself that.
I think we all agree that where they put the dumpster is the best possible location for the dumpster. I think the question is.
Was the parking space was a question? No, that was not the reason why we did not want to put it there, that we eliminate 2 parking spots if we do it on the east side, on the middle. So it'll be much closer for the persons. It seems like there will be more than once, the employees would go in and out. So is it not convenient for the employee to have it something closer?
I think we're trying to keep it as least visible from 14 Mile Road, and still allow for adequate and proper circulation. You move it anywhere interior of the site, it complicates things when you start having trash pickup trucks and they have to circulate the.
Yep.
This is the most convenient location for a trash
So
truck to get in and
pickup
out.
truck doesn't even have to come
Doesn't
inside.
have to come inside. It can simply use the service road on the outside of the site to get to this dumpster.
Mr.
And
Salmon?
there's already a dumpster right here, right next to it. So it was,
Okay.
Yeah.
made sense to have one location for 2 dumpsters aesthetically. But the engineer will tell you, we spent a long time.
I remember, yeah.
talking about this internally before it even came to the planning commission, and we had the same idea as you did. We talked about every conceivable location.
So from a safety standpoint, which one would be the best?
With the information that was provided by the contractor, this one seemed, with the suggestions that were made related to the openings in the dumpster and et cetera, although we admittedly have this conflict here, with the explanation, I think, and with training that the person, whoever's taking that cart across there, is gonna be imperative that they stop, have eye contact with the person, give the wave, give the nod, whatever, and then, so that's gotta be part of the protocol to be safe, plus signage and whatever other improvements. But really, it's gonna be a sidewalk the whole way, especially if there's some type of an opening here. There's gonna be only this one point of conflict. If we start putting it over here, we take it through, the people dining, we still have to get across here. So we still have that conflict. So it's pick your conflict.
Right. Mr. Tagle, did you have?
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Carlisle, from that plan there, can you tell me where the outdoor seating is going to be? I'm trying to reconcile the plan.
It's right here. It's shown on the site plan.
How do you get to it?
There's the store right here. This is where the outdoor seating is proposed. This is the drive. This is the elevation that's facing the interior drive.
Okay. So the seating that they've shown on the floor plan isn't necessarily correct. I mean, they show it in a couple different spots, and I can't tell where the doors are or not, but, so it'll be on the east side of the building, on the back side. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lambert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a follow-up to Commissioner Hudson's comment about pervious material for that sidewalk. Is that something we can require them to put in there?
I think it would be, we'd have to confirm with engineering if it's a viable solution. I don't know off the top of our, I mean, yes, it could be a condition, and we'd have to confirm it with engineering that it's a viable alternative solution. I'm not familiar enough with those type of products to say that it would work or not work, especially in the winter.
Yeah. And the second question.
So if it is a condition, I'd say per approval from the engineering department.
The second question is the concern about the lighting. Mr. Savin mentioned that there was some restrictions, I guess, as far as lighting. We're trying to reduce light pollution. The suggested resolution says the lights that would be turned off or reduced in intensity between 11 p.m. and sunrise. Would it be up to the applicant to determine how low to turn them down rather than turning them off completely from a safety point of view? And we wouldn't be telling them exactly what that intensity would be?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the requirement is to dim it, but they can turn them off, but not required.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that there's people baking at 1 o'clock in the morning is a valid reason to put the lights on, but they're not dealing with hundreds of customers that are going to require them.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? So, Mr. Carlisle, just to follow up on the two comments, or the couple of comments on the permeable sidewalk material. Do we have that type of material in other developments, other parking lots?
I know we have it in parking lots.
Okay.
We've also used it for emergency access, like fire truck locations. Sometimes we'll do those in like a grass crete, which is a little bit different, but it's still a permeable surface. I have not seen it on a sidewalk per se.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And
Okay.
something, again, it would have to be reviewed by the engineering department.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Are we ready for a resolution?
Did
Public hearing.
we get consensus on the sidewalk to the west?
You already had it.
I'm in favor of the sidewalk to the west.
Yeah, I feel like we have a consensus on that. I think there's some question about the material. Right? Okay.
I think then, given the fact that sitting here at the table, I think it's a great suggestion. I haven't seen that technology applied to this type of sidewalk. It doesn't mean the technology is not there. I'm just not familiar enough to really speak about it. So at this point, perhaps you would suggest and not require, but just because
I was thinking, I remember walking over at Walsh College for a meeting. It seemed to me there was permeable hard surface utilized throughout that area at Walsh College.
For sidewalk?
Yeah, we were walking on it. I think Mr. Tagle was there too.
Okay.
Concrete, yes.
I think, so I work in the Bank of America building right across from the mall. I think the entryway in the front of the building off of, I guess, Lakeview, I think that's a permeable sidewalk or permeable material. And then also there's a walkway from the parking lot into the building, which I also believe is permeable.
Aren't both Walsh College and Bank of America like that LEEDs certified?
Certainly our building is, yeah, the Bank of America building is, for sure, yeah.
So, can I just ask, on the sidewalk, you're talking about drainage, right? Is there a need for extra drainage there at the, on the west side where that sidewalk is?
I think the reason that was brought up, well, Mr. Hudson, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that it sounded like where you were coming from, Mr. Hudson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was we all agree that the middle spine for pedestrians is necessary. This is going to be a uni-purpose sidewalk only for
Which
cars.
is the west side, yes.
So it seems like a lot of impervious surface for a cart path, basically, that's going to be used rarely. Therefore, it would be appropriate to not have that additional impervious surface and treat it in a different way.
I think what you just said was, I like to have holes in the sidewalk that's a hard surface that allows
That too.
drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back to that previous page, but I was gonna also just ask the planning commission about the use of the EFS, right? There was the comments about the reduction of the use of the EFS, but just to see if there was consensus around the level of EFS on the.
Maybe I'm a little confused. I thought I heard, and I'll stand to be corrected, the construction manager was talking about an EFS substitute, which looks like EVIS, but it's different construction. And I was kind of all in favor of that, instead of having just plain EFS on there. So when we say EFS, I'm wondering, are we talking about I forget what he called it, a new walled or some kind of material versus the EFS?
Exterior insulation finish system is what EFS stands for.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm just a dumb lawyer. I don't know all this technical stuff.
I mean, the difference is the finished plaster, if you will, is applied to a rigid insulation board. So the board is put up, the EFS or the plaster is put on the board. That's the EFS. Basically, what he was saying was you put up it's not drywall, but it's a board like drywall, then you put 3 coats of plaster on it.
Well, you were my guru on EFS. What do you think? Do we want this EFS, or is it this?
Personally, in this application, what I see today, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it's a dominant material. I think it's blended in well with the rest of the masonry product that they're proposing.
Okay.
Personal opinion.
And just to kind of clarify that, what the construction manager was talking about was, instead of having the foam as insulation on the outside of the building, they could put insulation on the inside of the building. So it's
no big deal to me.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm with you, Mr. Hudson, not understanding all the mechanics. I'll ask you, Mr. Tagle, why is it necessary to have EFS at all? if there's the
It's
substitute
a
material.
very cost-effective system.
So it's a blended cost as you look
I
at the
think
facade of the building
I
and
think
building it.
it's a cost-driven decision to put that on a building. And as I've said before, if it's done appropriately, it's not offensive, but so many times it's not done that way, and you see it in a lot of places, and it looks poor.
Well, I think we've mentioned before, like, it doesn't wear well. Is that one of the issues as it ages?
You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that depend on that, how it's installed and how it's detailed, but all building materials need to be maintained. And if it doesn't get maintained, as other materials, it'll show, you know, wear or deterioration over time. I don't necessarily think it's a less, I mean, certainly there's more durable materials, like that brick or masonry product they're proposing is a more durable material. But, you know, I don't see that it being something that, you know, in a handful of years, this is gonna start to look bad. Again, assuming it's installed correctly.
Understood. Thank you. So the last, I have one question or comment I would make. Yeah, Mr. Roman, you go ahead.
So we are kind of moving toward the consensus that it will be on the west side, the sidewalk will be on the west side.
I believe that's the case.
With that said, so there are a couple of safety concerns that Mr. Savidan mentioned. So is there any signage or some kind of blockage we can put in so that the drivers know that, you know, he has to or she has to slow down? Is there anything like that that we can add there?
At the north end of their parking lot?
No, well, right after, you know, when the driver
Like the
supposed to
drive-through?
take off,
Yeah, in
yes.
front of the car, the front of line.
Maybe question is,
Yeah.
Mr. Savidan, do you think that we can have some signage or sometimes, you know, those blockage so that we, you know that you have to get close to it and then it will open, something like that?
Well, I would defer to our traffic engineer on this matter, and we'll address this during final engineering and make sure that it's designed to be as safe as it can be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, make sure I understand the point. So the design of where are you asking for signage?
So if you can go to the top view, then we can discuss.
Are you talking about this point
Yeah,
here?
in this area on the right side, or some kind of bar that, you know, the way you see in the parking
Speed bump,
structures,
you're
yeah,
talking?
or speed bump, some kind of blockage, or so that the driver will not be accelerating right away.
A
Or
bar
some
or a speed
signage.
bump, when you think about that, he's got hot coffee in his hands, you're gonna go over a speed bump?
Okay, speed bump is bad, I get that, but then some kind of signage or some kind of, what do you call this thing that they have in the parking structures, that you have to get close to it? Gate, yeah, so that it will open. I don't know if even that can be used.
I don't know if that's a solution, but I think there's different alternatives that can be used to warn not only the driver, but also the person with the cart to,
Yeah.
you know, stop signs, pavement markings, you know, pavement colorings, there's all kinds of different
Absolutely.
solutions, I think, to get there.
Because right now, there is nothing there, so that's why I'm thinking that, you know, because I understand your position, because, you know, when I have to, if there's a Starbucks on South Boulevard and Rochester Road, and I sometimes get scared that, you know, the car is coming out, and I'm coming out of the parking lot, you know, so it can be a situation. So at least we have to have some signage or something, so I know you are going to talk to the traffic department, so please make sure you do that, it'll be necessary.
Mr. Abedini.
So just a general comment, just as a follow-up to that. Typically, drive-throughs are designed so that the geometry actually causes vehicles to slow down or actually prohibits them from speeding up. So that radius right there, even without signage,
There you go.
that's engineered to actually keep a vehicle from going 25 miles an hour. They can't be going 25 as they exit that, as they leave the drive-through window. So that's a typical drive-through design that will not allow a vehicle to be speeding through that turn.
Yep.
Mr. Tannapelli.
Thank you. Just to ensure the trash disposal, the doors are facing which way exactly?
The gate, the main gates are open this way, and then the man door is in this location right there.
Okay, so the person does have access going behind it.
they have to step into the aisle slightly.
Correct.
And that's what Mr. Tagle was asking, I believe it's Mr. Tagle was asking to put the door back.
Put it back.
Thank you.
So I guess the one question I still have is open. So I think we have consensus, I think, on the sidewalk on the west. And just want to know if we had consensus on the material. If we felt it should be a permeable material. Engineering.
Yeah, I'd say if possible.
Right.
It's some, you know, the impervious asphalts, they get plugged up with dirt after about 5 years and they don't work anyway. So
Right.
it's- There are concrete ones like at Walsh, it was mentioned, that do work, but, you know, if possible, I think so. But women in high heels get their little thin heel caught on those impervious things.
Oh, I hate that.
I know they, it's you, right there, you got a problem.
Only if you're within throwing distance.
So if we've covered all the issues, then are we ready for a resolution?
I am.
Are you? Okay. You ready to read it?
Oh, see, open your mouth, what do you get? Okay, resolved that special use approval and preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Article 8 and 9 of the zoning ordinance as requested for the proposed Panera Restaurant with drive-through located on the north side of 14 Mile west of John R. 390 West 14 Mile, Section 35, currently zoned GB General Business District, be approved, subject to the following items. Remove bumper blocks and replace with bollards with approval.
I don't know if you're in the.
I'm in the right one. Oh, this is.
That's the last meeting, so.
Oh, I'm in the wrong one.
Page 8.
Thanks. All right, wrong one. Sorry.
Tom.
E. Page 8.
I think go down.
One.
That's
There you
it.
go. Okay. Okay, the first part I said, forget the bollard thing.
Why don't you start over?
All right, resolved that special use approval and preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Articles 8 and 9 of the zoning ordinance as requested for the proposed Panera Restaurant with drive-through located on the north side of 14 Mile west of John R., Section 35, currently zoned GB General Business District, be granted, subject to the applicant, subject to the following. Eliminate, no, we're not going to do that. Indicate that lights are to be turned off or reduced in intensity between 11 p.m. and sunrise. If possible, have the employee access to the trash enclosure from the backside, which would be sort of facing north, southwest, if possible. Anything else?
Permeable material.
Possible, yeah. Possible use of permeable material for the employee walk to the trash container on the west side of the property. Anything else, guys?
So the signage or something visible so that.
Okay. Ensure that adequate signage is to protect the employees walking in front of the drive-through cars.
Was that consider signage?
Consider, yes.
Support? Mr. Lambert, thank you. Sorry.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Rahman?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Abhidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6 on the agenda is potential text amendment transitions.
So before Mr. Carlisle starts, just this conversation is an important topic, but we're not talking about a specific application. We're talking about this concept in general, so don't want to get too specific here because there are some pending applications that we've already discussed that are Two of them are actually going into litigation, and et cetera, et cetera. So let's just keep our comments just. Got it.
Thank you, Mr. Stefanet. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And this is a follow-up to the Planning Commission discussion that we had recently. And again, these proposed amendments are a reflection on the comments that we received from the Planning Commission. By no means is this the final draft. Is this set in stone? We are looking for input from the Planning Commission to address these two issues. And specifically, the 2 points that were discussed were transition, particularly for multifamily or commercial development adjacent to single-family residential. And second was to increase the maximum square footage cap for a density bonus in the cluster developments. With regards to transition, in June, the Planning Commission discussed the issue of transition and especially the friction points between diverse land uses. At that meeting, there were a number of options that were presented to the Planning Commission for part of discussion. And at the direction of the Planning Commission, we were asked to consider zoning amendments to bring back to the Planning Commission to ensure appropriate intensity, height, bulk transition between these areas. What we have presented to you are drafted height, setback, and greenbelt provisions for any non-single family new development that is abutting one family zone residential. So if you have two non-families, these don't apply. These would only apply to non-single family adjacent to single family. So the first one is in regard to height. It would cap height at a maximum of 3 stories, 38 feet for, and again, any non-single family development that is adjacent to or abutting a single family. So if this is single family and this is abutting, the maximum height would be 38 feet. Any building or portion of a building on a parcel that is not abutting, not directly next to, but within 300 feet of one family shall not exceed 45 feet in height or 4 stories.
Can I just ask a question about the 38 feet?
Sure.
Is that to the middle of the peak of the roof?
It's how we define it in the zoning code.
Right,
It's
and
based on the roof type. So if it's a flat roof, it's the top, it's the peak of the
Right,
flat
if
roof.
it's a peaked roof, it's halfway up,
It's the midpoint of the eave, yes.
so.
I've got a question also. Ben, as I'm reading the proposed amendment regarding that, he says, quote, "A parcel that is not abutting but less than 300 feet from a one-family residential zone parcel shall not exceed 4 stories or 45 feet." If I read that correctly, it means 300 feet, it could be 1,000 feet. That's what you're talking about with 45. That word "less than," it doesn't make any sense to me.
How it's intended to be is that if you have a parcel, if you basically do a buffer 300 feet around, if that
I
buffer
know, but
hits...
that's not what this amendment says. It says not less than. That means it could be 1,000 feet. If you wanted to put within, that might solve the problem.
Okay.
But the way it's written, it doesn't.
It says not abutting but less than 300 feet. Not abutting, so it's not next to, but it's less than 300 feet from a one single family residential.
All right, it could be less than 1,000 feet. It doesn't really make any difference when you're really thinking about it. Just say within 300 feet.
Okay.
That encompasses it.
Okay.
No, I don't agree with that, but we can talk about that later.
Okay.
I had a,
And then let me just go on to the last one, is then any building or portion of a building that is greater than 300 feet from one single family shall not exceed the maximum height within the zoning district or the building form. So there's three tiers. There's the abutting is 38 feet. There's within 300 feet is 4 stories, 45 feet. And then if you're outside that, you can be whatever height the zoning district permits. And then the distance is measured from the nearest point of the property line to the nearest point of the residential property line in a straight line, and it does include right-of-ways.
is that meeting, did you have?
Can we ask questions at this point, or do you
Sure,
want to
yeah.
continue with the presentation before? So I want to just go back to the setback or the abutting within 300 feet. So when I read this, one of the first thoughts I had was a possible scenario that this might impact that we have or we've had in the past where we have projects within the city. And my initial thought was, this is restricting a development potentially that is on one side of the street, depending on the zoning that's on the other side of the street. So we're actually impacting, we're restricting this development just because on the, across the street, that's probably less than 300 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet, depending on the right of way. We have residential, but we have a different type of zoning on the other side of the street. Is that, am I understanding that? So that's one of the scenarios.
Yep.
It's not just contiguous lots from the property within 300 feet. It could be anywhere within the 300 feet.
Anywhere within 300 feet.
Okay.
Within the right of way.
Make sure I
Yep.
understand it correctly, what.
And again, this is how it's written. We can
Right.
craft out,
Okay.
you know, craft out little not caveats that it's only on one
Right.
side of the street, or, you know, however the
Yeah.
planning commission wants to go. But
I
this is
just-
how it's written right now.
Right, I
It
just wanted
doesn't
to
doesn't include right of way.
I just wanted to understand, make sure I understand it correctly,
Yep.
to understand the various typical scenarios that might restrict that verbiage.
Mr. Brown?
So the first option, you're saying abutting the two properties, so that's like the setback is the requirement?
I get the setback, it's in the second
The setback
part
on
of
this side and
yeah.
setback on this side, is it the requirement if it is?
So right now I'm just
So
talking
the
on height.
38 feet only allows you to have like two setbacks?
This is just building height. We're just talking about the building height now.
Right.
So I'll get to setback, the second part of the presentation.
No, but here, when two buildings are side by side abutting each other, what is the distance between these two buildings? according
It
to
varies by the
requirement?
zoning district in which it's located.
Okay.
So it's,
So my point is, do you have an example where like it's like 20 feet or 30 building height?
I guess I'm
Like this setback, I know it differs from zoning district to zoning district, so this could be like a.
So let me answer that in the second part, because I talk about
Okay.
setback in the second part of this presentation.
Right.
And which directly relates to this height issue. So let me get to that. If I don't answer your question after that part, then we can come back to it.
Mr. Tagle?
I wasn't here for the meeting of the discussion, but Ben, how did you arrive at 300 feet?
300 feet is the distance under which we do public hearing notices. And also, it's typically, the typical lot in a neighborhood node is about 100 feet wide, so it's about 3 lots in the neighborhood node. John, it could be 500 feet.
Yeah, we didn't talk
200
about
feet.
300 feet at the last meeting.
Yeah, it was just, it was a number based on particularly the distance under which we have to do a public hearing notice.
Yeah, looking at your proposed amendment, it talks about transitions. This is regarding transitions and increasing square footage cap in a cluster development. Are we confining this just to clusters?
That's the second part of this.
That's the second part. It's the
You
second
should-
part of the presentation.
Should probably do the second part.
Jumped ahead.
Yeah.
Let's move it along.
We're not, no, there's a,
So eliminate
What the height
questions
will-
until you get through your,
okay, so this is the second part to the first part about transitions. We're talking about greenbelt too, so now we're talking about height, we're talking about greenbelt. So when a parcel is abutting a one-family residential zone property, the building setback from the property line of the single family shall be equal to the height of the building. So let me use the example of 38 feet. If this building is 38 feet, the setback has to be 38, the building setback has to be 38 feet. However, at no time it shall be less than 20 feet. So if a building's 14 feet, it still has to be 20 feet. In addition, when a parcel is abutting a one-family residential, the minimum landscaped green belt shall also be 20 feet in width. So at no point will you have anything less than 20 feet of landscaping between non-residential